about the rest of the East for a second, Kurt. Let's look at this second tier. You have Brooklyn, Philadelphia, right, Milwaukee. But then after that, you have Atlanta, you have Boston, New York. What's your take on the second half of the Eastern Conference?
There's some potentially dangerous teams in there, right? There's some teams that are, first off, some teams that probably shouldn't go home in the first round that are going to, but there's also they're playing well right now. These are teams that are kind of coming together. The Knicks have won 7 in a row as we record this. And every one of these teams, I think, is, I believe, 8-2 or something close to it over their last 10. Atlanta, everybody kind of sleeps on. I don't know how much people have watched them, or if they do, they're like, oh, it's all Trae Young, right? I'm going to give a quick shout out to their center. Clint Capela has been fantastic for them this year, particularly defensively, because that's not a necessarily strong defensive perimeter team. You're just trying to cover up for Trae Young. They throw him out there and say, just block it, man. Just take over the paint and own it. And he's really taken a step forward this year, both defensively and a little bit offensively, but he's really taken a step forward and is going to get some defensive player of the year type consideration. He's been fantastic. And all that said, Boston's the team that scares me. What about, that's the team where that team could put together a run. What about you?
Yeah, 100%. I think Boston for me I'm still holding on to the dream, the Boston dream. I just think that, you just have too much talent. And I feel that if they can just figure out this identity question that we mentioned before, is it Jason Tatum's team or Jaylen Brown's team? I think that's it reminds me of Oklahoma City Thunder back in the day when you had KD, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden all in the beginning of their careers playing together.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do we do this then? They were just too young. And then now we're starting to see James Harden and KD together in Brooklyn. It's like, wow, it's like best team in the league. So it's like the same type of thing, but just, at the beginning of their careers. So that is like a question mark to me. But I'm with you on Atlanta. It's interesting. I think the mid-season coaching change kind of put a fire underneath them. And I think that they're playing with, we have a lot to prove, which is interesting that they're sitting at 4, right outside the top tier, and still people are sleeping on them. I think they kind of are like the dark horse. For me, like what Miami was last year is kind of what Atlanta is this year,
And we probably shouldn't sleep on Miami, by the way. They've still got all the pieces to put this together, even though they kind of haven't yet. But I'm with you. The other thing with Boston is they got healthy, right? Kemba Walker missed the start of the season, and he wasn't quite right. He has started to play more like himself, and Jason Tatum was hit hard by COVID, really hard. And admits to this day, he's using now an inhaler before games to get his lungs right because his breathing hasn't been right since he got it. But he's starting to look more like himself. He's starting to take those all NBA games, those moments where he's taking over on a big stage. It's still kind of the big 3 in the East and everybody else. But if Boston gets through as the 4th seed and is facing Philly in that second round, I'm tuning in. That's a good series right there.
7-game series. I would it probably wouldn't go the distance, but hey, I'm with you. I would like to see those games.